Hello, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Unity Fellowship Church of Columbia. I am Minister Cole Terrence Randolph Williams, and tonight is Tuesday, October 25th, 2022, of course. But we are having our Bible study and spiritual development class, and I'm super excited to share with you what I have on my heart in reference to our lesson for tonight. So without further ado, I'm just going to share with you what you can see here is my presentation. So I hope everyone is well. Shout outs to those that are joining me on YouTube, maybe even those who are happen to see us on Facebook Live, and definitely in this room in the Zoom platform. So let's get it moving. Okay, let's get it crack. All right. So certainly, as I have shared, I'm going to be teaching our class, but this is also an opportunity for you to come back and join us, hang out with us as we go live every single Tuesday, 7:30 at night, right here on YouTube, also on Facebook. And then on Sundays, we have our worship experience on Sundays at 1:30. And so if you happen to be in the area, you want to stop by and join us, please feel free to do so. You can do that by coming on over at 120 Allegheny Avenue in Towson, Maryland. But online, please be sure that you can like, subscribe, and share so that you can stay in touch with us. We'll stay in touch with you. And certainly you don't miss some great content that comes out throughout the week. So join us live at the Columbia Project, and that's our info there. And we look forward to seeing you in any capacity that we get to. So my title for our Bible study lesson is Even Me, Oh God, Even Me. I was moved by this text, particularly by the character who's going to be identified as the tax collector. And I guess I really was moved by him because I felt like I could understand their prayer. And so maybe that's something that you can also relate to as we get into it. But we're going to be looking at the book of Luke, chapter 18, verses 9 through 14. And as you can see, the image there is from the Inclusive Bible. So you can't act like you don't know where I'm getting it from. So you go get yours on Amazon.com, smile.amazon.com, and look up for Unity Fellowship Church of Columbia. That's it. I'm going to keep us moving. But it is definitely what we're going to be looking at tonight, right? Okay, so I have this very little short clip that I wanted to show you just to give you a little bit more of a visual about the text. Certainly we'll read it, but I just thought it was cute and fun. So just to, break up and have a more entertaining class tonight as well. You know how I do. So yeah, let's take a look at it. Very short, and it's about our lesson as well.
Stories of the Bible. The parable of the Pharisee and tax collector. This is Jesus, who is the Son of God and the Savior of the world. While Jesus was on earth, he taught everyone about God's love and healed people from their sickness. He did many miracles, like walking on water. And even raised people from the dead. One day, Jesus told this story to some people who thought they were very good and looked down on everyone else. Two men went to the temple to pray. One was a Pharisee, and the other was a tax collector. Tax collectors were hated by many people. The Pharisee stood by himself and prayed this prayer. I thank you, God, that I am not bad like other people, cheaters and sinners. I'm certainly not like that tax collector. I fast and give up eating food twice a week, and I give you 1/10 of everything I earn. But the tax collector stood at a distance and dared not even lift his eyes to heaven as he prayed. Instead, he beat his chest because he was so sad, saying, God, have mercy on me, for I am a sinner. Then Jesus said, I tell you, when the tax collector went home, he was right with God, but the Pharisee was not right. Makes himself great will be made humble, but everyone who makes himself humble will be made great.
All right, all right. So I thought it was pretty cool, pretty cute to give you that visual. And as it says at the end, everyone who makes themselves humble will be made great. And that's really where I wanted to maybe give us some additional inspiration for tonight. So whenever I'm sharing, as far as teaching class, I would love to be able to motivate you or inspire you about God's word. And so, yeah, that's what I wanted to lead with you and to share with you today. Okay, so let's look at the text. So the text simply says, as we get into it, verse 9, it says, Jesus spoke this parable addressed to those who believed in their own self-righteousness while holding everyone else in contempt. So whenever we talk about like, who is this, who is the audience, who is the person talking to directly, according to Luke, it's Jesus talking to those who believed in their own self-righteousness, right? And so it says that there were two people who went up to the temple to pray, and one was the Pharisee and the other a tax collector. And so the Pharisee stood and prayed like this. He's all, I give you thanks, oh God, that I'm not like others, greedy, crooked, adulterous, or even like this tax collector, right? And he says, I fast twice a week. I pay tithes on everything that I earned. And he goes on to say, and that's what he says, right? Now in verse 13, we get a shift, right? So the other one, which is going to be referred to as the tax collector, he kept his distance, right? Not even daring to look up, as it says, to heaven, in real humility, right? And all he said was, oh God, be merciful to me, a sinner. And that's where I got my title from when I read that part. And I was like, even me, oh God, even me. And so Jesus says, believe me, the tax collector went home from the temple right with God. And so you can see here, I have certain words pulled out or certain phrases pulled out and read. And I'm definitely going to, elaborate more as to why that is. But it says that he was right with God, right? I mean, they were right with God. And so while the Pharisee, didn't, for those, and it says, for those who exalt themselves will be humbled, right? Just like we saw in the video, while those who humble themselves will be exalted. So let's look at this even further in regards to the application of the text. So we've got our Pharisee. Look at this guy. The Pharisee is one who observes the letter, okay, of the religious law, but not its spirit. So again, I'm pulling out things so that hopefully you got your pen and pad. We're going to unpack it and talk about a little bit more of where I'm coming from here. And it says that they lack understanding of the truth. And it made me think about, as I have it here, where it says in Matthew 21:30, the text where it was about the landowner, right, goes to the first and the second child, and it comes to the second child saying the same thing that he told the first child. And the second child was like, oh yeah, I'll do it, right? He's like, I'm on my way, but he never went, right? I don't know about you, if you know people who are just all the talk, right? They're all about, oh yeah, that's me, or me too. I'm going to do that. I'm all about it. But they never have any action behind it, right? They never do what they say they're going to do. And it's really not their intention to do what they're telling you that they're going to do. Okay. So that's if you're thinking about, okay, what's the nature that I'm trying to pull out, the character that I'm trying to, emphasize, this is it. That's the Pharisee, right? So let's look at the Pharisee, again here in the aspect of who is the audience, like we talked about. Jesus is talking to the Pharisee straight up. In verse 9, where it opens up, it says, Jesus spoke this parable addressed to those who believed in their own self-righteousness. So Jesus was talking to that guy straight up. He believes in his own self-righteousness, or anyone like him, rather, believe in their own self-righteousness. They're the ones who say, yep, I'm going to go feed the hungry. I'm going to, go help the poor, or it's right for me to do X, Y, Z because, of my status, of my position, and I'm gonna live by the law of the land. That's why I talked about the letter, the religious law, and then I'm going to pretend that I'm living by what is called the divine law. So we're going to go into that a little bit further. But yeah, so this is the Pharisee. Jesus is talking directly to this guy in this text, right? Okay. And so now we get to learn a little bit about the tax collector. All right. So the tax collector is also known as a publican or publicans, right? According to the King James Version. But publican, the term itself is Latin. It's pronounced publicani, right? Publicani. And so they were actually wealthy men who paid for the privilege of collecting taxes in certain localities, okay? And often they were Romans. However, tax farmers also hired the Jews to do the tax collecting for them. So there is a known tax collector who is Jewish that is mentioned in the Bible. And honestly, this term tax collector is not really mentioned that much in the Bible. It's more so only mentioned in the New Testament and throughout the Gospels. I think I read about maybe 8 or 9 times. But at the end of the day, so that's where this term is coming from, as far as being hired to collect taxes from the farmers, right? The tax farmers. Okay, and again, this is all under the Roman government. And so they were either the term tax collector or publican was applied there. All right, so now you've got the tax collector, and somebody may say, oh man, poor tax collector. Okay, right? So they were subject to verbal abuse and protest by the Jews of Jesus's day because of their perceived greed and collaboration with the Roman government. So in perspective, right, if they were often the Romans who were doing the tax collecting either way, they were not liked, right? They were of and from the Roman government, and let alone, God darn it, don't let you be a Jew and also doing the work, right? In cahoots, in collaboration with the Roman government. So you weren't liked, is all I'm trying to say. So yeah, so they definitely got a bad rap. We get it, okay? All right, so now I guess I wanted to just bring us back to this piece, right? Where I talked about the Pharisees. So you can see these guys, okay? They are one who observes the letter of the religious law. And this is the piece that I said I want to, delve into it a little bit deeper and help us understand what I mean by that. But not its spirit, right? Lacking understanding of the truth. So again, they're focused and they're observing the letter of the religious law, but not the spirit. And that's where I'm going to introduce a term known as divine law. All right. Okay. So I'm a student of metaphysics, and I always want to introduce this into our growth in terms of spiritual development. As far as, metaphysical Christianity, it's definitely a practice, and where we get to peel back a little bit and see what undercurrents were also being demonstrated from the teachings that are found in the Bible. And so I'm giving you that text in reference to the metaphysical meaning of the Pharisee. And so let's just go back, right? So as I said, the Pharisee is observing the letter of the religious law, right? So they observe that everything has its foundation in the rule of action. That's what they consider as the law. So at the end of the day, whatever the law said in terms of, a right or wrong, it was to the letter in terms of their religious code, their religious law, right? But they did not, if we go back here, they did not observe the spirit. So this is where that shift comes in, because God is God, right? God moves and breathes regardless of there being just the observation of the letter of the law. And this to me is where I believe the tax collector had this understanding. The tax collector had this understanding of the being and the movement of who God is, in spite of their position, in spite of their condition, in spite of the circumstances that they found themselves in by their profession, by their reputation, right? And so when we talk about the spirit, right, spirit known as God, or this is how I'm giving you this definition that spirit is equal to God. Okay, so God as the moving force in the universe, the principle of life, creative intelligence, as the breath of life in all creation. Right. So let's go back. I'm just switching back and forth so you can get the connections here. The Pharisees observed the letter of the religious law, but not the spirit of the law. And God is moving and able to move even in our code, if you will, as far as like the law of the land. So like what also came to mind is like how we talked about, I think about a Sunday ago. And whereas, the judge who didn't care about the people, didn't care about God, let alone they were a judge, right? I guess at the end of the day, that's their role, that's their job. And so they're probably just focusing on the code, the law of the land. But yet you have that person, that woman who shows up, the widow, who understands the spirit. Right? They understand the spirit that God is, no matter what, the moving force in the universe, the principle over all life, right? And so that's where, again, I wanted us to grasp this understanding, which happens to be truth, okay? So here is where the Pharisees is lacking this understanding of the truth. They're lacking that understanding of divine law, right? And so the truth in definition is the absolute, right? That the truth is in reality, right? God is the same yesterday and today and forevermore, right? That God, the absolute, that which is, has been, and ever will be, which eternally is, supersedes this religious law that the Pharisees called themselves living by to the letter, as well as trying to present this front that they also live by the code of the divine law, right? That's why I said, at the end of the day, they don't even comprehend. They don't even understand it. They're basically pretending that that's what they do. They're all about the status. They're all about the position. They're all about what other people see. They're so, lofty in their own right, which is why their prayer was like, this is what I do. This is what I don't do, like that other person. So you get the mindset of the Pharisee, right? The character of the Pharisee, okay? And so the Pharisee family, they were hypocrites, right? They pretended, as I said, to practice the divine law, but failed to do so. They wanted people to see by their status that that's what they do, but they don't. Okay, so the divine law, here's what we get to understand, okay, for ourselves, is the underlying plan by which God, spirit, as I showed you earlier there, moves in expressing itself. Meaning, I don't care what you got going on, divine law is always forever present, as I said, the same yesterday, today, and forevermore, right? And so the divine law moves in expressing itself. It's the logical process by which God manifests. And we're going to get to see how God is going to manifest in this parable on behalf of the one that the Pharisee was like, not like this guy, you know what I mean? Looking down on, turning their nose up and just, discounting as not having value and having worth, right? In their prayer, right? And so divine, just as by definition, is godlike, godly, of nature of God. I don't know. I just think somebody needs to sit with this for a moment and get excited about, no matter what it looks like in terms of somebody talking about, this is their status, how much money they make, what type of degrees in schools and what they do and who they give money to and charities and affiliations and no matter what. And you show up and you say, it's me, oh God, even me, oh God, look upon me. Okay. Here's how I see myself, right? Maybe I see myself as less than, like the tax collectors. He saw himself as a sinner. But I believe, like I said, he had an understanding of this secret, the divine law, meaning the underlying plan by which God's spirit, no matter what, expresses itself, okay, and is going to manifest, okay, on his behalf. So let's look at that further. All right. So here we go. It's the prayer. It's the prayer. It's very sweet and very straightforward. The prayer says, oh God, be merciful to me, a sinner. So we have the tax collector. Jesus said he went home from the temple right with God. He prayed a simple prayer, right? Okay. And the outcome was that
The outcome was that he was right with God, right? God, as we again connect to spirit, he was right. He was connecting, he went home connecting with the moving force in the universe, right? Understanding the principle of all life, right? The creative intelligence as the breath of life in all creation. He went home with this awareness, with this knowledge of his position in divine law, regardless of religious law that the Pharisees was condemning him by, right? And so he understood truth. He had the understanding of truth, unlike the Pharisees. They lack that. They can't understand truth, right? The truth is, as I said, the absolute, that which is, that has been, ever will be, which eternally is. The truth of God is the reality, right? That's what the tax collector understood. I believe in that prayer. Oh God, be merciful to me, a sinner, one who has made mistakes, one who is considered as, who gets verbally abused and talked about and looked down on. And, maybe in my own mind, I consider myself unworthy. He says, be merciful to me. What does that word mean to you? Merciful, when I looked up, it's just said full of mercy. He's saying, God, be full of your mercy towards me. Show compassion towards me. This guy, he's labeled himself a sinner, someone who, like I said, is missing the mark, who makes mistakes, who doesn't get it right, doesn't even feel, like I said, worried to lift his head up to heaven, to have a higher elevated understanding of himself. But again, I'm pressing you to see him and pushing in that prayer, having this divine law understanding, having this truth, because that's why he prayed of this type of caliber of a prayer. That's why it's that, oh God. You're not just going to say, oh God, be merciful unto me. No, oh God is an oh God. You know what I mean, right? So he said, oh God, it's a cry out. It may not have been a cry out in the temple. We don't know. But I believe in his knowing, in his being, he went to that inner space. He went to that place that he understood that God was all and the end all and be all, no matter what the Pharisees were condemning him by, saying, the letter of the law, of the religious law. He understood that God was what? Greater. And so he said, oh God, that God, be merciful, full of mercy to me, this guy. Okay. As he labels himself a sinner. So let's keep it moving, family. I know I got to go. I'm just trying to share with you my take homes or my takeaways from when I read this text, right? So much here that we can really, appreciate, I believe. And so at the end of the text, right, it says, those who humble themselves, this is what Jesus is saying, those who humble themselves will be exalted. To me, that's the fact, that's the promise, right? And so when I looked up the word exalted, right, we get words like raised up, elevated, lifted up, right? Like the tax collector, to me, raised in his awareness and his understanding, raised in his power, raised in his self-esteem, right? Jesus said when he left that temple, he was right with God, right? So to me, that means the way that he left wasn't the way that he came in. You see what I'm saying? There was a shift that took place for our guy, the tax collector. He was operating and fulfilling and understanding and having that that expression of the divine law, right? The divine law, in that it was, again, the plan by which God moved in expressing himself through him was in that moment where Jesus says the moment he left the temple after he prayed that prayer, he was right with God. He was in that divine law. So in closing, family, I do have just a few questions and certainly some takeaways that I wanted to share with you. So number one, have you ever prayed a tax collector's prayer? Have you? Okay. Have you ever prayed a tax collector's prayer? I always say this whenever I'm sharing. I always say, like, when I read the text, I pray and I ask God to help me see myself, because I don't want I don't know. It's a thing for me that I don't want to just, be speaking and feel like I can't really relate. And I think maybe that's just, a prayer answered by the Holy Spirit that, Spirit helps me to see myself in the shoes of the characters that are being portrayed. And so I thought about it and I was like, hey, okay. Have I prayed a tax collector's prayer? Absolutely. Right. And so I'm asking you that question. If so, please share your outcome, when you left your temple, right? What was that like? Because I believe that certainly, like the tax collector, when you left, you were right with God. You received that divine law. Okay. And then on the flip side, have you ever prayed the Pharisees prayer, right? Let's keep it a buck. Let's keep it 100, right? Without even realizing, maybe, that could be your situation, or maybe you did realize it. You going to hopefully be honest about that too. Like, yeah, no, I prayed that. Like, at the end of the day, you're like, I do that, but I don't do it like they do it. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, I'm not quite like them. You know what I mean? So if so, again, share any example that comes to mind. That'll be helpful. Because, when I teach, I just like us to have, open dialogue. And, this is a way for us to always unpack, but definitely grow. And we assist one another in that growth. All right. And then my takeaways, family, I encourage you to pray the tax collector's prayer, right? Not just for yourself, but pray it for a sibling, right? Pray it for a loved one, right? That's where you're going to have to get into now, that mindset of your knowing that you are in divine law, that you're not like the Pharisee, that you are able to see yourself elevated and powerful and be lifted up. And you should want that for your sibling as well. And so I'm asking you to pray that prayer and say, oh God, be merciful to my sibling. Be merciful to them who see themselves as one who's always making mistakes, who's always missing the mark, who may see themselves as unworthy, right? Who's gotten a bad rap, right? Who people are talking about and so forth. Pray that prayer for them as well, okay? And then also the next takeaway here is I'm encouraging you to share, okay? Don't keep this stuff to yourself. Share how Spirit, God has moved you from that state, right, that you were in, like the tax collector coming into the temple, right? You were in that low space, right? And how you moved from, then catch this, you go from humble unworthiness to humble power, okay? Because that's what Jesus was saying, that those who are able to humble themselves will be exalted, right? And in that exaltation, family, you will have power, okay? There will be a shift, okay? And I needed you to accept that piece about yourself and what the promise is about, having authenticity and humility, okay? Having that humility as you walk this walk in life. All right. And so when I say share it, I'm encouraging you to share it through text, share it through Facebook, Instagram, in person, church, etc., wherever. Let you be a walking testimony that you can share your story to another. Family, this is my ending of class. I'm definitely going to pass it over to Pastor or Assistant Pastor Reverend Janet to close us out. And I hope that you could take these questions and takeaways a little bit further to unpack them before we leave tonight and just share, what is it that you got from the lesson. But this was just my 2 cents. I hope you enjoyed it. I love you so very much. I'm saying to everyone that is join with us, thank you for watching. Again, we're here on YouTube and or Facebook. You'll find us, but certainly every single Tuesday night at 7:30 Eastern Standard Time, and on Sundays as well around 1:30 Eastern Standard Time. So that's going to be in person as well as on YouTube. So again, can't thank you enough. I love you so very much. My name is Minister Cole Terrence Randolph Williams, and I'll want to say God bless you and have a good night.